Sit right down and I'll show you where my dreams began.
I'm Michael Dugan, your culinary host, guiding you through the chef's journey. Join me at the chef's table, where you'll experience stories, secret sauces, signature dishes, and kitchen disasters. Today on the show, I would like to introduce you to Lela Cross. She's a consultant, an author, a restaurateur, and soon to be releasing a new cookbook. Lela, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Michael. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on the show. I can't wait to learn from you and learn about your journey becoming a chef.
Oh gosh, it's really interesting because, you know, as we've spoken before, I just realized I've been in this business for almost 40 years. So it's like trying to figure out like which parts to talk about. You know, there's so many different journeys. So
I have some great questions for you. And I thought I'd start out with just the beginning of your journey. What was it like growing up for you? And did you have any connection to food at an early age?
Oh, you know, when I was in Mexico and I really thought about this podcast, I was on the beach and I just sort of let things come to me. Uh-huh. And the memory that I just was really vivid was, you know, probably I was 5, 6, somewhere around there, and just, you know, tippy-toeing at the edge of the table and watching my grandmother make tortillas from scratch. Just, you know, going on and on about, you know, how you know, have to just be gentle and how you roll and, you know, the amount of flour that you put on. And then, you know, watching her make salmon cakes. And so just remembering the smell of like a slightly little burnt tortilla. But I come from a very traditional Spanish family. And it really what was important was food, gathering, events, huge family. The great thing for me is like I was able to choose where I wanted to eat. We lived next to our cousins and our aunts, so if I didn't like what my mom was cooking that day, I could pop over to my aunts or to my grandmother's.
Oh wow!
I had a choice of food. So,
oh my gosh, that's incredible. So you had a lot of family around you.
Yeah, and food is huge. You know, it's a language, it's a voice. It's color, you know, music, because, you know, around the festivals, the music and the weddings and things like that. So food is all of it for me. Growing up in that type of tradition, which I'm sure, you know, it's a language that crosses across the United States, across the world. It's food and the gathering and the smells and the spices. And
I love that. I mean, you're painting a great picture for everyone who's listening and for me. It really sounds like a great journey that you had.
More importantly, are you hungry yet, Michael? No.
Oh my gosh. Right now while we're recording, it's actually dinner time. So after I always end up recording right around lunch,
right?
Or dinner or breakfast, lunch or dinner. And it's just funny talking about food and then my stomach just starts growling. So what was your favorite thing to eat when you were growing up? Was it the tortillas? And where did you go and what did you eat?
Interestingly enough, my mom married my father, and my father was Black French. And so we had a mixture of soul food, you know, the cornbread, the greens, the ham hocks. And so I had a really interesting dynamic as a child as far as foods and flavors and culture. I loved, you know, the greens and the cornbread. But then on the other hand, I also loved the chili and the tamales and the, you know, just even the roasting of the chilies, you know, when the harvest comes, the smell, you know, the spice in the air. Gosh, it's just hard to say. I kind of love it all.
Yeah. It sounds like a great variety of food.
Right.
And I love how you can pick and choose your family. I'm imagining that there was fights that you went to somebody's house and wanted you to come to their house.
Oh, right. It's interesting. But I can't really say that I can choose one over the other. we had two different food cultures in our homes, and my mom just became an amazing cook. She eventually opened a tamale, factory out of the garage. And then she was also a beautiful pastry chef, so
Wow,
she worked with chocolate and spun sugar and things like that. So interesting background.
So as a child, like as you were growing up, did you aspire to be a chef, or what did you want to be?
I actually went to school for pre-law and ended up at the university. I like most people have to end up getting a job because, you want more money. So I ended up getting a job in a restaurant through a friend, realizing like, oh, I'm kind of good at this, I could be really fast. And then from there, I met a gentleman who was a teacher at a technical school. In the restaurant that I worked in, he came by and was recruiting people to go to culinary school. It was kind of a side program for the CIA, so the Culinary Institute of America. And so I enrolled in the program. It was a 2-year program. Pardon me?
Where was it located?
I went to University of Las Cruces.
Okay.
From there, I just met this gentleman, and then the restaurant that I worked in.
And it's in California?
New York.
New York.
Yeah, they have the Napa Valley. Yeah. So from there, I ended up in the program, and from there, we had to work hours, restaurant hours, do testing, did a lot of touring as far as like competitions and things like that. Right. And then just ended up really loving it. That's the direction I ended up going in. I ended up getting a business, an economic degree in business. And then I attended like 2 more years of, culinary school. Decided to move back home, which is Santa Fe, New Mexico. Worked in a hotel, La Fonda Hotel, which is a historic hotel. I was there for 14 years and worked my way through up as a chef and then the food and beverage director. And then from there, I moved to Washington and ended up opening a restaurant here. There's a lot in there. I've met some amazing chefs along the way, some mentors. When I first moved here, I worked with Tom Douglas a bit.
Now, you mentored with Tom Douglas.
Yeah, it's a very short stint. It was more on the business side of what to do when you open your own restaurant and what not to do, the what to do's and the what not to do's.
He's one of my idols, actually.
He's solid. He's been so amazing and solid in our food industry. He's opened the door for a lot of different situations.
And what was the name of your restaurant?
Oh, gosh, I've had a couple. When I was in Olympia, I had a little restaurant with 2 partners. It was called Capitale. And then the second after, I think we were there for probably about maybe 11 years. And then the building had a fire. From there, we had to move. So we went down into a little bit more center of Olympia downtown. We opened a restaurant called Cielo Blue.
It's a great name.
Well, it meant several things, it meant blue sky and, Italian or Spanish or whichever one you wanted to interpret. So it was a fun little space. Oh gosh, we were there for about 3 years. Then we had the downturn of the economy. At that point, it was pretty hard. We struggled and eventually ended up having to close.
It's tough for a lot of people, especially right now. One of my favorite restaurants called the Mogul Palace in Bellevue, Washington, which is pretty far north of you, closed. And they'd been open for 22 years.
Yeah, it's an interesting where you're in a place where you have to make those decisions, Mm-hmm. Sometimes for at this point in time, it's like a different. We've been forced to change our lives, our lifestyle, to think differently, to move differently. And, out of that comes new, obviously a lot of new restaurants and retails and businesses will pop up. And unfortunately, a lot of other ones will fade away.
That would be one of the questions I always ask the chefs is what was a major fork in the road for you? And it sounds like closing down a restaurant would definitely be a major fork.
Oh gosh, I have major forks. It's interesting because I somehow I end up with lots of different opportunities.
I laugh, Lela, because the reason I laugh is because Chef Tracy, who was a wonderful person that I interviewed with and we've kept in touch, I would ask her that question. She goes, "Oh, I have a whole set of cutlery." And I just burst out laughing. I thought it was really creative.
Cutlery. It's crazy because that's what we collect it. But right. In all honesty, I still use the same knife that I had like 10 years ago.
Yeah, me too.
It's like I have all these beautiful knives in front of me and I'm still using, my $10 knife.
Have you ever heard of Forstner?
Uh-huh.
That's the knife I started with in cooking school. It was
Oh my gosh.
wooden handle and I loved it. And then I went up to the Hinkles and I didn't like the handle. I just loved that wooden handle. It felt so comfortable in my hand. Eventually, when I got married, I think I got rid of it, but...
you're an old soul, I tell you.
Oh, yeah. And proud of it.
Yay.
Okay, so as you progressed, what was next in your career?
Oh gosh, I've had a lot of opportunities. I've met some really amazing people. What I think ended up to be really important to me, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, was really creating partnerships with people and, just really getting to know our community. Giving back was really important to me. So many people had given to me along my journey that I felt like I really wanted to give back to, people who worked for me, who worked people in the community, organizations.
Definitely.
The city of Olympia. Yeah, just a lot of, I felt like it was my turn to not necessarily, we've always been part of the community, but I felt like it was time to not worry so much about success, but to focus more on building the community around us. I think that was a fork in the road for me.
Yeah.
My original dream was like, have 3 or 4 different restaurants, and
wow.
But then it just got more important to me that my community started to be more important than building an empire at that point.
Is there any one community project that stands out?
We do a lot for Safe Place, Hands on Children's Museum. There's so many small organizations in Olympia that need support. Are the Washington Center, which is our great. It's a performance center. So
performance arts. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then kids. Do a lot for kids, making sure that they get opportunities.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You don't know what to make for dinner again? You want to explore new cuisines, but you don't have time? What if you have new inspirations and we provide you with the ingredients and recipes? We know you want to travel, learn new foods, explore the world, but life's responsibilities keep getting in your way. What if you can bring those experiences to your home neatly packed into a box? Ladybug Collective is a subscription service that finds real people from around the world to create beautifully curated assortments of recipes, ingredients, and cultural content. Not only do we include cultural ingredients, but also a set of detailed recipe cards with instructions on how to use them. Each box also has a QR code that when scanned takes you to tons more global exploration to immerse yourself in. Everything from film to lifestyle, art to history, it all can be found here. Live your life to the fullest. Subscribe now and don't miss out on the next cultural adventure. Ladybug Collective. Always exploring.
Definitely. And that's amazing. Now, you've lived in Seattle for a while. How many years would you say?
Oh, I haven't lived in Seattle. I've lived in Olympia.
Oh. Well, Seattle to me, when we're talking to people around the world, they'll see it as Seattle, Washington, or Washington State, probably. Olympia, probably about, an hour and 15 with no traffic?
It's a pretty quick jaunt.
Yeah, so we have listeners from 15 countries now.
Oh, beautiful.
For them, living in Washington State, how long have you lived in Washington State?
I have been here since, I'd say... Let's see, how was I when I moved here? I think I was in my 30s when I moved here. So probably a little over 30 years.
Okay.
That I've been in Washington.
So that defines you as local.
Yeah, I think so.
What 3 things would you tell someone that's visiting from another country or out of state that they should see in Washington State?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question because there's so many things. I mean, you have the mountains, you've got the sea,
Orcas Island.
Orcas Island. It's a beautiful place, and it's there's something magical about it. So that would be one thing. I think going down the coast, a lot of people look to do that. To be honest with you, the first thing I tell people is you just want to eat your way through here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, and now we have all these beautiful breweries, and distilleries. I mean, we've grown in lots of different ways in the last 2 to 3 years. And really, it's about experiences. I think I would start with food, but I think you knew I'd say that, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's where I would start. Who would you say, as you're thinking about your career, who do you follow that you trained with that you felt was a good mentor? You mentioned Tom Douglas. Are there any other chefs that you follow or you've been mentored by?
I follow all different kinds of chefs. Right now there's some pretty incredible young chefs that are coming up. I'm doing a project. It's a Brazilian style menu.
Oh, wow.
So I've been, and it has a little bit of Peru, all those areas. So I've been kind of focusing on the chefs in that area right now. There's so many in my mind. It's like all these little pictures are coming up in my head.
So another question for you is, for all of us, the pandemic has been really tough. And how have you coped with it? What is it that you do to keep yourself motivated and alive? How do you cope with it?
Well, it was, I've kind of continued to move. I work on a farm on Tuesdays, so I was able to kind of commit to the earth, vegetables, planting, growing, chickens, so I was able to stay close to the earth, and it grounded me a bit. So that job became, 2 days a week and then 3 days a week. I was outside getting exercise, moving. I wanted to stay connected to people. So we created, little groups where we went out to, not necessarily, where we met in a large space and we all sat 6 feet apart. Lots of Zoom, where we connected. My daughter lives in Spain. They were in lockdown way before we were.
What part of Spain does she live in?
Barcelona.
Oh my gosh, I've been there.
I know. Isn't it amazing? The food there?
It's truly amazing. And the food is incredible. And the people are incredible. And the music. And oh my gosh, what an experience. We traveled quite a bit. My wife, I've always told people when I got married, I had to hang on because she just loves to travel. And I love to travel for the food and the culture and the people.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Spain, yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited. She's coming home for the holidays. And she said she's going to try and sneak a bunch of ham on board. So hopefully we'll have some really lovely Serrano for the holidays, right?
Oh my gosh, their ham is, wow, amazing. The pandemic, it's been pretty tough, but it sounds like you've done some good things to figure out how to cope with it. I think it's all about perspective, really, and figuring out how to navigate that, and also a support structure, being around people. And if you can't be there in person, Zoom is always a good way to connect, or a phone call.
Right. Yeah. And then just, still cooking, helping families who need it. Just a lot of different things. I think that was important, is still staying connected, being of service, helping to support the restaurants that were open and able to move forward, whether it was, one step at a time. It was my way of still being in part of the community.
Right. Now, I know you have something coming up. I know you have a cookbook plan. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Maybe a sneak preview?
It's called Gather. It was inspired by the, wanting to create relationships and how people gather. And I think it came from just being the way that I grew up is, just remembering how amazing the gatherings were, and the events or functions or birthdays and weddings, and the relationships that I've created along the way with people. One of the features is Sassy Seafood. There are 2 amazing, incredible women who own their own boats, and they can this tuna.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And if we travel, I'd love for us to do a little piece on them sometime. And they're just, they're strong and they're empowered, and did a beautiful photo shoot on the beach with their product. I'll send you a couple of photos of that.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
That's what inspired me to do the cookbook. Just people. For me, it's really about people.
Yeah, I have to agree. That's what food does. It brings us together and really, really connects people.
The language. Yeah.
It is a beautiful language. And anyone that works in this business, in service, understands that. It's amazing how common that belief is that I've discovered from the people I've interviewed with and met along my journey. Now we're going to get to a section that's one of my favorite parts. It's called Let's Get Cooking.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I know you've been to Barcelona. Is there any one special place in the world where you've been that connects you to food and culture?
Oh gosh, I plan a vacation or trip. It's always around food. We've been to Costa Rica a couple times, and my experience of Costa Rica, outside of the mosquitoes and everything else, was that the best experience that I had was when we'd be on the beach. Families would invite us to eat with them. So, we'd say hi, we'd start asking questions. My eyes get really big, and all of a sudden we're having a meal with this family on the beach, and they're showing us how to open and drink coconuts, and
wow.
how to just eat with our hands or our fingers. So it's and those are the things that I remember the most, because they're intimate, they're colorful. The food language is all about togetherness, love. It's incredible. And that happened for us in Costa Rica. I was in Oaxaca, I think a couple of years ago, and the restaurants, the food is incredible there. It's, it's pretty clean. It's the restaurants are, really high-end restaurants, and they're gorgeous. The atmosphere is done. Service is amazing. That's one of my favorite places. There's a couple distilleries there to the country, and the markets are huge and incredible. Had some really amazing food there.
Can you describe 3 of your favorite specialties?
I really love working with salmon. Salmon has like all these, you can dress up salmon any way you want. It's, so I love that I can add texture to it. I love that I can, paint a picture on it. And then also that I can put any kind of application to it, and it gives it texture, anywhere from nuts to leaves to, potato, anything. So salmon is one of my favorite things to play with. Grits. I love grits for the same reason. I'd say probably my next favorite thing would be, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about the third one.
So salmon and grits.
Mm-hmm.
Anything from your past?
Well, the salmon is from my past. Grits are from a little bit of my past because of my father and the Southern cooking. And, I would love to say beans, but as a child, I just didn't like beans at all. I take, corn. Corn has so many applications, cornmeal, sweet corn, you can prepare it any way. So I'd say corn would be another one of my favorites to play with.
So another challenge that I love to offer the chefs, what would your dessert island dish be? Well,
in our last restaurant, Dillinger's, we had a donut bread pudding with a bourbon. We served it with a bourbon ice cream and kind of a nice little salted caramel on there. It was our best-selling dish. I think we probably sold maybe 3,000 of those things.
Wow.
And it's always been my favorite. This has always been my favorite. It's not an island dish, but it's like...
Well, This would be if you were stuck on a desert island.
I would look for coconuts.
Yeah, right. Coconuts for sure. What about, this is a big challenge if you're ready for this one. This is my favorite question. Have you ever had a kitchen disaster? And can you tell us about it? Oh,
I was doing a movie opening for Robert Redford, Lager Beanfield, and it was in the Historic Museum from where our hotel was. So it was, I'd say 2 or 3 blocks down the way, running across the street, and my ice carving, we dropped the ice carving. So we all cried. And then I had to run back into the kitchen and redo an ice carving in like 30 minutes. It was the center of the event.
Oh my gosh.
Super stressed. Yeah. I've never done an ice carving that quick. Up until that point, they take 2 to 3 days to do sometimes. I was so happy that I had ordered an extra block because I normally don't. Yes, we watched it melt afterwards.
Wow. Oh, I just can't imagine that. Oh, that would be devastating.
Yes.
But then you picked yourself up and you moved on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And we've had the normal, like, where you lose electricity or power and they're in the middle of I think my last disaster was a fire alarm went off, and it was a show night, and we had to evacuate the restaurant in the middle, and people had to go to the show without any food. So we did offer for them to come back afterwards and feed them, but just the sound of it, having to evacuate, the restaurant, and people all dressed up and ready to go somewhere, that was terrible.
Oh my gosh. As we wrap up, can you share anything like a life lesson or life lessons learned along your culinary journey?
I think just be open to opportunities, people. That if you listen long enough, as you talk to people, and I mean, as you're probably sitting here picking out things that you like and are excited about it. I think what I've learned is like people have so much that they can contribute and want to contribute. For me, and the people that I meet, it's always in the language is food. That's what's close to people. And to me, that's what's intimate. And that's what I get so passionate about. The lesson I've learned is to just listen, because everyone has passion.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson. So how can we support you and the community at large?
We're about to launch our new partnered up in a distillery called Seattle Distilling. And we're launching hopefully next year. And so hopefully the next time we have a conversation, it will be about Seattle Distilling.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, we've got whiskey. We've got a 2-year whiskey, a 2 to 3 year rye, and a 5 to 6 year brandy. And we also do gin and vodka. So that's my next journey. And
again, you're out in Olympia, Washington.
Yes.
And you can find Chef Lela at LelaCross.com. From there, you can connect to her Facebook and Instagram, or head out to our show notes and link from there. I want to leave everyone with a quote by Julia Child. People who love to eat are always the best people. What does that mean to you, Lela?
Oh gosh, I remember growing up with Julia Child, and just it's my community. It's my like-minded, community where we gather, we eat, we laugh, we have fun. I mean, that's how I would take it.
I love it. Well, Lela, as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for coming on the show, and you are truly a voice for chefs.
Thank you. When I started chefing, it was a hard, and it still is a hard business, especially for small businesses who are the business owner and the chef, and, the wife or whoever or partner works the front of the house. The industry's changed a bit, but it's still, you have to love it, and you have to have so much passion to keep doing it day to day.
Yeah, that's very, very true. That's a special message. Thanks for joining us today. Follow us on Facebook. Find our website in the show notes. Subscribe on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen. Leave a comment with 5 stars, and stay tuned for the next episode of Voice for Chefs.